I was having dinner with my daughter Aurora and her new husband Kieran at Portland's finest restaurant, celebrating their honeymoon. When he stepped outside for a business call, an elderly woman approached our table with terror in her eyes. She pressed a folded piece of paper into my hand and whispered urgently, "Get your daughter out of here now." Something in her voice told me I had to listen. That decision saved both our lives. Welcome everyone. Drop a comment below telling me where you're watching from and whether you think I made the right choice, trusting that elderly woman's warning. My name is Vernon Kane, and I've spent 25 years building homes for Portland families. I thought I understood stability. I was wrong about what really mattered. 2 weeks ago, I walked my daughter Aurora down the aisle. She's 32, a brilliant UX designer, and she'd found someone who made her laugh again after her mother passed. Kieran Thorne seemed perfect, charming, successful, everything I'd hoped for her. Tonight we were celebrating at Heathman Restaurant, one of Portland's finest. Aurora looked radiant in blue, her wedding ring catching the candlelight as she talked excitedly about their honeymoon. "Dad, you should see the house Kieran found," she said, cutting her salmon. "Pearl District with those big windows you always said make a home feel alive." Kieran raised his wine glass. "To family and new beginnings." I should have felt happy. Instead, something nagged at me. How quickly everything had moved, how he'd handled all the paperwork. But Aurora was glowing. That's when Kieran's phone buzzed. His expression shifted. "Important business call. Give me 2 minutes." He kissed Aurora's forehead and stepped toward the entrance. The moment he disappeared, an elderly woman from the next table stood up. I'd noticed her earlier, sitting alone watching us with uncomfortable intensity. She moved quickly despite her age, suddenly beside our table. Her face was pale, hands trembling as she pressed a folded paper into my palm. "Get your daughter out of here now," she whispered, voice shaking with terror. Her grip was surprisingly strong. "You don't know who your daughter really married." The words hit like ice water. Something in her eyes, pure desperate fear, made every paternal instinct scream danger. "What are you talking about?" I started, but she was already moving toward the exit. Aurora looked confused. "Dad, what was that about?" I looked at the paper, then at my daughter's trusting face, then toward Kieran, still on his call. Every rational part said this was crazy. But the irrational part, the part that had kept me alive in dangerous situations, was screaming, "Aurora, we need to leave, right now. What, we haven't even finished." "Trust me." I stood throwing cash on the table. "Do you trust me?" She saw something in my face that made her nod. I spotted the fire alarm near the restrooms. In 30 seconds, this place would be chaos. Sometimes you create your own exit. I pulled the alarm. The piercing shriek filled the restaurant instantly. Diners jumped up, servers dropped trays, everyone moving toward exits. Perfect cover. "Dad, what are you doing?" Aurora shouted over the noise. "Saving your life?" I shouted back, taking her hand and pulling her toward the emergency exit. "I hope." We pushed through confused diners and burst into the cool Portland night. Behind us, the restaurant emptied in controlled chaos, fire trucks already wailing. Aurora stared at me, confusion and trust mixing on her face. "Dad, you're scaring me." "I'm scared too, sweetheart." I looked back where Kieran was pushing through the crowd, frantically searching. But sometimes being scared keeps you alive. The safety of my living room felt like a lie. Aurora sat on the couch still in that blue dress, watching me pace. Her phone buzzed against the coffee table, Kieran's name flashing for the 7th time. "Dad, I have to answer," Aurora said, reaching for it. "Let me handle this." I caught her wrist gently and picked up the phone. "Kieran." "Vernon. Thank God." "Where's Aurora? I couldn't find you guys after the alarm." "She's with me." I kept my voice steady. "She got overwhelmed by the chaos. You know how she gets with crowds. Is she okay? Can I talk to her?" "She's resting." The whole thing really shook her up. "Why don't you head home? We'll all feel better in the morning." A pause. Too long. I'd really like to hear her voice, Vernon. Aurora was shaking her head at me, eyes wide. Something in Kieran's tone had shifted. Less worried husband, more something else. "She's already taken something to help her sleep." I lied. "I'll have her call you tomorrow." Another pause. "Take care of her, Vernon. She means everything to me." The line went dead. Aurora stared at me. "Dad, what's going on?" I unfolded the paper the old woman had given me. Shaky handwriting showed an address in southeast Portland, and below it, "Check her accounts." Check everything. They move fast once they start. "We need to look at your banking," I said. Aurora pulled out her laptop, fingers trembling as she logged in. "Dad, this is crazy." Kieran wouldn't. She stopped mid-sentence. We both stared at the screen. A pending transaction, $50,000 scheduled to transfer tomorrow morning to an unknown account. Aurora's face went white. I didn't authorize this. I would never... She clicked frantically. It's using my digital signature, but I swear I never signed this. More clicking revealed savings account restrictions she'd never requested. Her investment portfolio showed pending beneficiary changes, all dated within the last week. How is this possible? She whispered. I thought about those papers Kieran had brought by. Remember the insurance updates after the wedding. All those documents you signed. Her hand flew to her mouth. The marriage certificate updates beneficiary forms. I signed everything he put in front of me. I trusted him. This wasn't random. This was surgical professional planned. And if that old woman was right, Aurora wasn't the first. Pack a bag, I said. Small one. Where? I looked at the address. Southeast Portland, unfamiliar territory. To find out who's trying to save your life. Aurora stood still, staring at her laptop. Dad, if this is real, if Kieran is really, then we figure it out together. But somewhere he can't find us while we're figuring. She nodded, closing the laptop with shaking hands. How long have you known something was wrong? About 30 minutes longer than you have. As she headed upstairs to pack, I looked out at the empty street. Somewhere out there, Kieran was probably making calls of his own. The question was, how much time did we have before he realized his perfect plan was falling apart? Janet Williams lived where hope had worn thin. Her small house sat behind chain-link fencing, paint peeling, but garden meticulously maintained. Every window glowed with warm light, as if she feared the dark. She opened the door before we could knock. You came. Good. Come in quickly. The living room hit me like a shrine. Photographs covered every surface. The same young woman at different ages. Graduation shots, vacation photos, candid moments of infectious laughter that reminded me painfully of Aurora. That's my daughter Rachel, Janet said. She would have been 34 next month. Aurora moved closer to the photos. She's beautiful. What happened? Janet's hands shook, pouring coffee. She married Kieran Thorne 2 years ago. 3 months later, she was dead. Aurora sank into the worn armchair, face pale. They went out on his boat. Lake Oswego, calm water. According to Kieran, a sudden storm hit. Boat capsized. Rachel couldn't swim well. Janet's voice turned mechanical. He was found on shore 2 hours later. Hypothermic, traumatized. The grieving widower who tried so hard to save his wife. She pulled out a manila folder spreading documents across the coffee table. Marriage certificate, property transfers, insurance policies. Just like you, she signed everything. By the time she died, everything belonged to him. Her grandmother's house savings car. Aurora studied the papers. These look legitimate. They are legitimate. Kieran's mother is Barbara Thorne. She works for the city, has access to official forms, stamps, databases. She can make any transaction look absolutely legal. My blood ran cold. How many others? Janet opened another folder. More photos. Death certificates, property transfers. 6 that I've tracked. Rachel was number 7. Aurora would be number 8. She laid out photos like playing cards. Different young women sharing that same trusting vulnerability. Kate Mills car accident, Beth Cole hiking fall, Amy Reed overdose, Jess Fox house fire, Mia Stone drowning, all within 6 months of marrying Kieran. Aurora was shaking. How has no one caught them? Because they're smart. Different jurisdictions, different methods. Barbara Thorne has 20 years building her reputation as a community pillar. Who questions her paperwork? I studied the timeline. How long have you been tracking them? Since they buried my daughter. I knew something was wrong. Rachel was terrified of boats would never go voluntarily. But no one listens to grieving mothers with wild theories. She showed a notebook filled with dates, locations, names. I've been following their pattern, trying to warn victims. Always too late, or they wouldn't believe me. She looked at me directly. You're the first father who listened. The scope was staggering. Not some desperate scam. A business. A family business running for years using the city's own systems as cover. We need proof, I said. Real evidence that can't be dismissed. Janet nodded grimly. Barbara keeps records. Has to. Too many transactions to remember. Filing system somewhere, probably her office. Aurora looked up from the photos. Dad, if we don't stop them, we will. I gathered the documents, hands steady despite building rage. But we need to be smarter than they are. Dawn broke gray over Portland, and with it came the hardest conversation of my life. You have to go back to him. I told Aurora over coffee that neither of us could taste. She stared at me like I'd lost my mind. Dad, after everything we learned last night, especially after everything we learned. I leaned across the kitchen table. If you disappear, he'll know we're onto him. He'll run, and we'll never get the evidence we need to stop him. Her hands trembled around her mug. I don't know if I can do this. Look him in the eye, pretend everything's normal when I know what he's planning. You're stronger than you think, and you're not doing this alone. I pulled out my phone. Text him. Tell him you're feeling better, you want to see him. 20 minutes later, Aurora was putting on makeup to hide the sleepless night, practicing her smile in the hallway mirror. How's this look? Like a woman who loves her husband. I said, hating every word. She nodded, took a deep breath, and walked out to face a man who was planning to kill her. While Aurora played her role, I had my own performance to give. I drove downtown to the city planning office, a brutalist concrete building that looked like it had been designed to crush hope. Barbara Thorne worked on the 4th floor, according to the directory in the lobby. I spent 2 hours learning the building's rhythms. Security guard made rounds every 40 minutes. Cleaning crew arrived at 10 p.m. Most importantly, the parking garage had a service entrance that stayed unlocked for maintenance vehicles. My phone buzzed. Text from Aurora. Coffee with Kay. Going okay so far. I texted back. Stay strong. Almost done here. But I wasn't almost done. I was just getting started. The building's public records showed Barbara Thorne had been Deputy Director of Property Records for 15 years. 15 years of access to every real estate transaction in the city. 15 years of learning exactly how to make fake documents look real. My phone rang, Aurora's ringtone. Dad. Her voice was tight controlled. Can you pick up some groceries? Kieran's making dinner tonight. Code for trouble. What do you need? Well, he mentioned he has some paperwork for me to sign. Something about updating our insurance after the honeymoon. He seemed excited about it. My blood went cold. They were moving faster than we thought. Any idea what kind of paperwork? He said it was a surprise, something that would secure our future together. The way she said it, I could hear the fear bleeding through her careful tone. I'll get those groceries, I said. See you soon. I hung up and stared at the city planning building. Tonight couldn't come fast enough. When Aurora came home that evening, she looked exhausted from the performance of her life. How bad was it? I asked. He kept watching me, like he was looking for something. And Dad? She pulled out her phone, showed me a photo she'd taken discreetly. He had files spread out on his desk. I saw names, women's names, with dollar amounts next to them. One of the names was Aurora Kane. The number next to it made my stomach turn $750. We're going in tonight, I said. Aurora nodded. What do you need me to do? What you've been doing all day. Be brave. I looked out at the darkening Portland sky. In a few hours, we'd either have the evidence to destroy Barbara Thorne's operation, or we'd be the next names on Kieran's list. Dad, Aurora's voice was small. What if we get caught? Then at least we get caught fighting back. 11 p.m. in downtown Portland felt like the bottom of the ocean. The city planning office loomed above us, most windows dark, except for harsh security lights. You sure about this? Aurora whispered as we approached the service entrance. No amount, I admitted, pulling on latex gloves. But I'm sure about what happens if we don't try. The parking garage service door was propped open by some careless maintenance worker. We slipped inside Aurora's phone flashlight, cutting through darkness. The building felt predatory at night. Every echo too loud, every shadow too deep. 4th floor, stairs not elevator. By the 3rd floor, Aurora was breathing hard. What if the files are encrypted? Then we hope you're as good with computers as you are with design. Barbara Thorne's office door might as well have read, Evil Lives Here. I pulled out the small toolkit I'd bought that afternoon. Since when do you know how to pick locks? Construction security in college. Some skills stick. The lock clicked open. Keep watch. Barbara's office was sterile, organized, cold. File cabinets lined one wall, each drawer labeled with bureaucratic precision. Try the computer, I told Aurora, attacking the locked filing cabinet. She slid behind the desk, fingers flying over keys. Password protected, but... She pulled out a USB drive. Good thing I brought my toolkit too. Where did you learn? UX design requires creative problem solving. The screen flickered to life. I'm in. While Aurora navigated digital files, I forced open the cabinet. Inside folders organized by year, each containing property transfers. But a pattern emerged as I flipped through them. I've got hard copies here. Marriage certificates, death certificates, property deeds. And I've got the digital database, she said, voice tight with horror. Dad, this is everything. Names, property values, timeline, even method notes. She turned the monitor toward me. A spreadsheet like a serial killer's trophy case. Kate Mills, $340,000. Car accident, 3/15/2022. Beth Cole, $280,000. Hiking fall, 07/22/2022. Amy Reed, $412,000. Overdose, 11/2022. Jess Fox, $390. 00. House fire, E02/14/23. Mia Stone, $310,000. Drowning, 06/30/2023. Rachel Williams, $450,000. Boating accident, 10/12/2023. Aurora Kane, $750,000. Method TBD, status active. They've stolen over $3 million, I breathed. Aurora was taking photos camera flash, illuminating our faces in stark bursts. There's more. Future targets folder. They're researching other women. I grabbed my phone, photographing physical files. Every document signature, forged stamp, complete confession. Almost done. Aurora said, copying financial records. Everything's backed up to the cloud. I was closing the last drawer when we both heard it. Footsteps in the hallway, slow, deliberate, getting closer. Aurora's eyes met mine. We'd been so focused on evidence that we'd forgotten the most important rule: always have an exit strategy. The footsteps stopped directly outside Barbara's office. The door handle turned with a soft click that sounded like a gunshot. I grabbed Aurora's arm, pulling her behind Barbara's desk as the door opened. Through the gap, I saw expensive loafers and black security boots. I know you're in here. Kieran's voice was calm, conversational. Motion sensors picked you up 20 minutes ago. Aurora's hand found mine gripped tight with terror. Looking for my wife and father-in-law, Kieran continued. They've been acting strange since dinner. Thought they might be here doing something foolish. The security guard's radio crackled. Should I call it in? Not yet, Frank. Family matter. Kieran's feet moved closer to the desk. In seconds, he'd see us. Time to stop being prey. I stood fast, putting myself between Kieran and Aurora. You're right. We're doing something foolish. Trying to save my daughter's life. Kieran's smile was charming, but his eyes were ice. Vernon, you're making this harder than necessary. Aurora, sweetheart, come out. We need to talk. She's not going anywhere with you. Actually, she is. Kieran nodded to Frank, who stepped forward. Frank thinks you're burglars. Breaking and entering is serious, unless Aurora comes home with her worried husband. Aurora stood slowly, phone clutched in her hand. Our evidence. Kieran, I know what you are. I know about Kate Mills, Beth Cole, all of them. Kieran's composure cracked. You don't know anything. I know you killed them, Aurora said, voice stronger than ever. And I know you're planning to kill me. Kieran lunged toward her, but I was ready. 25 years of construction work kept me strong. Rage made me faster. I caught him with my shoulder, sending him stumbling into Frank. Run, I shouted. Fire exit. Aurora bolted for the emergency door while I grappled with Kieran. He was younger, but I was desperate. Frank reached for his radio as I threw my weight against him, sending us crashing into filing cabinets. The fire exit alarm shrieked as Aurora hit the door. Perfect chaos. Stop her, Kieran screamed, but I grabbed a glass paperweight from Barbara's desk, bringing it down on his wrist. As he reached for his phone, he howled, clutching his arm. Frank was backup radio in hand. Security breach, 4th floor. I didn't wait. I sprinted for the fire exit, following Aurora down 4 flights, alarm wailing like a banshee. We burst into the parking garage as police sirens wailed in the distance. Aurora was at my truck, fumbling with the handle. Keys, she gasped. I threw them as the stairwell door slammed open behind us. Kieran's voice echoed, Find them, they can't get far. We jumped in just as Frank appeared. I gunned the engine tires, squealing as we raced toward the exit. In the rearview mirror, Kieran stood in the garage entrance phone, pressed to his earface, twisted with fury. They know, Aurora said, clutching her phone with our evidence. They know we're onto them. Good, I said, taking a hard right onto the empty street. Now they know what it feels like to be hunted. But we'd crossed a line. No more pretending, no careful planning. This was war now, and we had maybe hours before Kieran and Barbara disappeared forever. Sometimes the best hiding place is in plain sight. We're going back, I told Aurora, as we sat in my truck outside a 24-hour diner, planning our next move. Back where Dad, they'll be waiting for us. Exactly. I pulled out my phone, opening the camera app. But this time we're bringing witnesses. I set up my phone on the dashboard, angling it to capture both our faces. With shaking fingers, I started a live stream on Facebook, then shared it to Instagram and Twitter simultaneously. Testing. Okay, we're live. I looked directly into the camera. Portland residents, this is Vernon Kane. If you're watching this, you're about to witness something that will shock you. My daughter Aurora and I are about to expose a criminal operation that's been running in our city for years. The viewer count started at 0, then climbed 12, 47, 156. What we're about to show you is evidence of multiple murders disguised as accidents. The people responsible work for our own city government. I held up one of the printed photos from Barbara's files. This woman, Barbara Thorne, Deputy Director of Property Records, has been helping her son kill young women and steal their property. Comments started flooding in. Is this real? Call the police. Share this now. Aurora leaned into frame. I'm Aurora Kane. 2 weeks ago, I married a man named Kieran Thorne. Yesterday, I discovered he was planning to kill me for my inheritance. Tonight, we found proof he's done this to 7 other women. The viewer count hit 800. We're going to confront Barbara Thorne right now. Live on camera. I said, if something happens to us, you'll all be witnesses. Share this stream. Record it. Don't let them cover this up. We drove back to the city planning building. The parking garage was empty now. Frank and the police were long gone. But Barbara's office window still glowed with light on the 4th floor. She's still there, Aurora said, probably destroying evidence. Not if 5,000 people are watching. We took the elevator this time. No point in stealth anymore. The viewer count had exploded 2,847 people watching live comments, streaming faster than I could read them. Barbara's office door was closed, but I could hear her voice inside talking rapidly on the phone. I positioned my phone to capture everything, then knocked. Barbara Thorne. This is Vernon Kane. We need to talk. The phone conversation stopped abruptly. After a long pause, the door opened. Barbara looked exactly like what she was, a bureaucrat caught in the act. Her usually perfect hair was disheveled, her desk covered with shredded documents. Mr. Kane, I don't know what you think you're doing, but we're exposing a murderer, I said, holding up my phone so she could see the viewer count 423 and climbing. Say hello to Portland Barbara. They're all watching. Her face went white as she realized what was happening. You can't just show them the files, Aurora. Aurora stepped into frame, holding up the photographs we'd taken. Barbara Thorne has been forging property transfer documents for years. Her son Kieran marries women, kills them in staged accidents, then inherits everything. Comments exploded. Oh my God! Someone call 911. My sister knew one of those girls? Barbara tried to close the door, but I pushed it open, keeping the camera rolling. Kate Mills car accident. Beth Cole hiking fall. Amy Reed overdose. 7 women dead, Barbara. How much money have you stolen? This is harassment. You're trespassing. We're citizens exercising our right to expose corruption, I said to the camera. Look at her desk, everyone. She's been destroying evidence all night. The viewer count hit 5,000. Comments were coming so fast they were just a blur. Share this, call police, save the video. Barbara's composure finally cracked completely. You have no idea what you've done. No idea who you're dealing with. Actually, we do, Aurora said. We know exactly who we're dealing with. The question is, do you know who you're dealing with? Because right now, 5,000 people are watching you confess to murder. That's when we heard footsteps in the hallway. Fast, angry footsteps that could only belong to one person. But these weren't the footsteps we were expecting. Janet Williams stepped into the office, but she wasn't the grieving mother we'd met 2 nights ago. 3 men in dark suits flanked her, their jackets bulging with concealed weapons. Her entire demeanor had changed. Gone was the frail, trembling woman. In her place stood someone who radiated cold authority. Well, she said, surveying the scene with satisfaction. Vernon Kane, the helpful father. You've done exactly what I needed you to do. I kept my phone steady, the live stream still running. The viewer count had jumped to 7,842 and climbing. Janet, what are you doing here? Cleaning up loose ends. She smiled, but it was nothing like the sad, grateful expression I remembered. Barbara, darling, did you really think your sloppy little operation could run forever without attracting attention? Barbara stared at Janet in confusion. What are you talking about? Who are you? I'm your replacement, Janet said simply. You see, Vernon, when I told you my daughter married Kieran, I was telling the truth. What I didn't mention is that I've been running a much more sophisticated operation than Barbara's amateur hour for the past 15 years. The live stream comments exploded. What? Plot twist. Record everything. Aurora grabbed my arm. Dad, what's happening? Janet walked to Barbara's desk, casually pushing aside the shredded documents. Barbara, your problem was always thinking too small. Fake marriages, staged accidents. So crude, so obvious. You were drawing FBI attention to Portland, and that was bad for my business. Your business? Barbara's voice cracked. Tech executives, federal contractors, city planners. Real money, real power. Your little widowmaker scheme was bringing heat to my territory. Janet turned to the camera, speaking directly to our audience. 10,000 people watching now. Perfect. I realized with growing horror what was happening. You used us. You used Aurora as bait to destroy Barbara. Of course I did. Barbara's operation needed to be eliminated, but I couldn't do it directly. Too messy, too obvious. Much better to let an angry father do the dirty work. She gestured to her men. Now I can step in, take over her client list, and expand my own operations. Barbara finally understood. You manipulated everything. The warning at the restaurant, the address, even the break-in. I made it all possible, Janet confirmed. Though I must say, Vernon, your live stream idea was inspired. I couldn't have planned better publicity for Barbara's downfall. The viewer count hit 10,247. Comments were streaming, someone call FBI. This is insane. Save this video. What about Rachel? Aurora demanded. Your daughter who died. Janet's mask slipped for just a moment, showing cold calculation. Rachel Williams? I never had a daughter named Rachel. That grieving mother act was just theater. I'm not even a Williams. The name's Margaret Cross, and I've been running organized crime in this city longer than Barbara's been breathing. One of Janet's men stepped forward. Ma'am, we should wrap this up. Yes, we should. Margaret looked directly at me. Vernon, you have two choices. Work for me, help me build a real criminal empire, or... That's when the sirens cut through the night air. Distant at first, then growing louder. Multiple units coming fast. Margaret's expression changed from confidence to alarm. What? 10,000 witnesses, I said, holding up my phone. 10,000 people who just watched you confess to running a criminal organization. You think they weren't calling 911. The comments confirmed it. Police on the way. I called FBI. SWAT team coming. Barbara actually laughed. A bitter, desperate sound. You brilliant fool, Margaret. You just confessed to federal crimes in front of 10,000 people. The sirens were getting closer. Through the office window I could see flashing lights reflecting off the buildings below. Margaret's men were looking nervous, hands moving toward their weapons. Boss, we need to go. Now! But it was too late. The elevator dinged and we could hear heavy footsteps. Multiple voices, the sound of tactical gear. Portland Police Building is surrounded. I looked at the phone screen. 12,633 viewers and climbing. The comments were a celebration. They're caught. Justice. Heroes. Margaret Cross. The woman who'd manipulated us all stared at the phone in my hands with something like respect. You really did it, Vernon. You destroyed us all. The office erupted into chaos as Margaret's men reached for their weapons, but Barbara wasn't going down without a fight. You think you can just waltz in and take over? Barbara screamed, diving behind her desk as one of Margaret's thugs drew his gun. I grabbed Aurora, pulling her down as the first shots rang out. The live stream was still running. 15,000 viewers now watching a real-time gunfight unfold in a government building. Stay down, I shouted, shielding Aurora with my body while keeping the phone angled to capture everything. Margaret's voice cut through the gunfire. This is what happens when amateurs try to play with professionals. But the shooting lasted less than 30 seconds. The elevator doors burst open and tactical officers in full gear flooded the office. Portland police, drop your weapons now. Margaret's men were professionals, but they weren't suicidal. Weapons clattered to the floor as hands went up. Barbara emerged from behind her desk, mascara streaked down her face, hands raised. Don't shoot, I surrender. Margaret Cross stood in the center of the chaos, strangely calm, as officers surrounded her. She looked directly at my phone camera one last time. 15,000 witnesses to the end of an empire. Margaret Cross, you're under arrest for conspiracy racketeering and accessory to murder, the lead officer announced as handcuffs clicked into place. Barbara Thorne, you're under arrest for fraud, conspiracy to commit murder, and racketeering. I helped Aurora to her feet, both of us shaking but unharmed. The live stream comments were going insane. Holy shit. They're all arrested. Save this video forever. Ladies and gentlemen, I said to the camera, my voice hoarse with exhaustion and relief. You just witnessed the takedown of two criminal organizations that have been terrorizing Portland for years. 15,000 of you called for help, shared this stream, and made sure these killers couldn't escape justice. A detective approached us, notebook in hand. Mr. Kane, I'm Detective Rodriguez. We're going to need full statements from both of you. Everything's right here, Aurora said, holding up her phone. Photos of all their files, financial records, victim lists. It's all backed up to the cloud. Through the office windows, I could see news vans pulling up outside. Reporters were setting up cameras, preparing to tell the story that 15,000 people had already witnessed, live. Dad, Aurora said quietly as the criminals were led away in handcuffs, we actually did it. I pulled her into a hug, this brilliant, brave daughter who'd risked everything to help me save her own life. We did it together. The live stream was still running. I looked into the camera one last time. To everyone who watched, who shared, who called for help, you saved my daughter's life tonight. You proved that when good people stand together, evil doesn't stand a chance. Comments flooded in: heroes, father of the year, love wins, family first. Kate Mills, Beth Cole, Amy Reed, Jess Fox, Mia Stone, Rachel Williams, they didn't die in vain. Aurora added, her voice strong despite her tears. Their stories helped us stop this from happening to anyone else. As we walked out of that building together past the arrested criminals and the gathering media circus, I realized something profound. For weeks I'd been terrified of losing Aurora. But tonight I hadn't just saved my daughter. I'd found her. Really found her. The scared young woman who'd married Kieran was gone, replaced by a warrior who'd helped take down a criminal empire. The live stream ended with over 20,000 viewers and hundreds of thousands of shares. By morning, the story would be national news. Margaret Cross and Barbara Thorne would spend the rest of their lives in prison. Kieran Thorne was arrested at his apartment 3 hours later. But more importantly, Aurora was safe. Our family was safe. And sometimes that's all that matters. Love doesn't just conquer all. Sometimes it live streams the victory for the whole world to see. Looking back on everything that happened, I realize how close I came to losing Aurora forever. Don't be like me. Don't ignore those gut feelings that something's wrong. When that elderly woman pressed that paper into my hand, every logical part of my brain said it was crazy. But God had put her there for a reason, and I'm grateful I listened. The truth is, I'd been so focused on wanting Aurora to be happy that I missed the red flags. Kieran's charm, his insistence on handling all the paperwork, the way he rushed everything. These weren't signs of love, they were signs of a predator. This true story taught me that a father's protective instincts aren't paranoia. They're a gift from God. What I learned from this nightmare is that evil often wears a beautiful mask. Margaret Cross fooled me completely with her grieving mother act. Barbara Thorne built her reputation as a community pillar while destroying families. They counted on people like me being too trusting, too polite to ask hard questions. But here's what I want every father watching to understand when your child's life is at stake. Politeness doesn't matter. Social media, live streaming, making noise. These aren't just modern tools. Even traditional grandpa stories like mine can become powerful weapons against corruption when shared with the right audience. The most important lesson from this true story: trust in God's timing and the power of family love. When Aurora and I worked together, when we refused to give up on each other, that's when we found our strength. The same God who protected us that night is watching over your family too. Don't wait for danger to knock on your door like it did mine. Pay attention to the people your children bring home. Ask questions. Trust your instincts. These grandpa stories aren't just entertainment. They're warnings, lessons passed down to protect the next generation. If this true story resonated with you, please share it with other parents who need to hear it. Leave a comment about your own experiences with protecting family. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more meaningful grandpa stories that could save lives. Your engagement helps these important messages reach the families who need them most.